Next step is basically taking a thick piece, well not thick, but a 1/2 inch piece of wood, and you're gonna cut them down into 1/8 strips like so. I just did 6 strips. You probably will end up using for 1, 2, but I like to have extra and they come in handy for stir sticks and mixing paint or stain like that too. Alright, so the next step is adding the little strips in. It's going to be our next step. And what you're going to use compressor and a pin nailer. The pin nailer, if you don't know what it is, it's a very small nail gun, and it shoots very, very tiny holes. So when you're doing really small detailed crown molding or detailed work, it's an excellent handy tool to come in. And I'm using 1/2 inch, so I don't need very long ones. I believe those are small that come. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some glue on this one here, and I'm just using regular wood glue, nothing fancy here. You don't need longer set time or anything like that. So I'm just gonna set it in here. Now this part's a little tricky because with glue sometimes it does move a little bit. But what you basically want to do is you want to get the little piece as flush as possible as you can get, because once we're all done this, we're going to be veneering it again with a nicer veneer on top, so it gives a nice look. So when we're veneering it again, you want to make sure it's nice and flush, because if you have any little areas, you'll know. But before we get into that anyways, I'll show you, but you just want it as flush as possible as you can. If you happen to be a little bit out, it's okay, because we're going to be puttying and sanding afterwards anyway, so it's no big deal. Just watch your fingers and everything like that. I just like to triple check before I go ahead and staple it. And I always double check it because it did move a little bit on the other side here. And you do want to put some pressure down. That was a little sawdust, I guess, stuck in the corner that came off. So there, we've got one in. So as you can see, it does make it just a little bit more square looking, like I said. So basically I'm going to do the same thing all the way around. So what I'm going to do is just put the board down, and I'm just going to measure here. And I happen to have just a little handsaw here, and you just go ahead and cut it. I know you can't see it on video, but you're just basically cutting a small piece. So all you're doing is you're just cutting it right off handsaw. Like I said, you can't use bandsaw. You can cut them all once, but I like to cut them every time because I want to make sure everything is just settled, because there could be movement or anything like that. So next step again, same thing, just add a little bit of glue and trim around. It's okay to get a little bit of glue squeeze out, just gotta make sure you wipe it off after. And this part, like I said, it's a little time consuming and a little tricky because you want to make sure it's flush. So I'm going to add this one in here again. Check the front, check the sides. And there you go. So I'm going to keep doing the same thing all the way around. And on the next one as well. And I'll show you what to do next after we have done all doing the trim. Alright, so after using the pin nailer and putting all your strips in, as you guys can see here. Next thing I did is I took some putty and puttied in all the areas that you couldn't, that were, you know, chips knocked out, or from when we drilled the hole it wasn't so perfect. So I put putty over top, took a sander, about 100 grit, and I just went right over top just so it makes everything nice and flush then if your edges happen to stick out a little bit. And the next step basically is what we did before for in your press. So all you have to do is basically put a little bit of glue on here. This is the part where you would want your nice good veneer, so you put glue on here, put glue on the backing of the veneer, and then just put it right on top in the same methods that you would use for the press. And then I'll show you how to cut out the holes then for your speaker, because you'll have veneer like this. So I'll show you the next steps, how to do that. I'm not going to show how to do the press, because the press I showed you before and that's the exact same step. The only difference is you're not doing two, you're just putting on one piece of veneer on top. So just gotta go ahead and do that, and then I'll show you how to cut out the holes for the speaker for the veneer next. Alright, so after you took it out of the press, veneering it, you kind of see some indentation where your speakers go, because obviously it's not solid, so it sinks in. So now we got to cut that out, and don't worry about the edges. I'll get to that in a couple minutes to show you how that will all be cut off. But for right now, what we want to do is we want to cut these out. So you're going to flip it over in the inside. Make sure you've got something nice and flat to do this. And it does get a little bit noisy, so make sure you do it in a garage or something area. And what you're going to need is just a chisel, sharp chisel, and a hammer. And you're basically just going to go on the edges, and with your flat part of the chisel you want it nice and flat against there. And the reason for that is you want it nice and flat because that's where we want to slowly chip out. Now we are going against the grain in some areas, but that's okay. So what you want to do is just line it up basically nice and flush as you can. Just take your hammer, just kind of hit it nice and hard. And just keep going all the way along here. And don't worry if you don't hit too hard, you can always go back over and do it again. Now sometimes going with the grain, sometimes it will direct in some directions. You just want to make sure you get it nice and flat there. And let's take a look on this side and see how it goes. So as you can see, we did get through on some areas here. Some areas and some others area. You don't want to try to push down too much, because the reason for that is you don't want it to split and you don't want to get chip out. So sometimes you may get a little bit of chip out. That's okay. What we're not looking for is we don't want big chunks of tear out happening, because I'm going to be staining this a color, so I don't want to have too much fill as possible. So that's okay. So you just kind of look at it and go back and just continue to chisel it out. Just slowly going back and just continue to slowly chiseling it out. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's all finished. Alright, so now once you've got it all chiseled out, at the back here you'll see you got two nice little areas. Don't worry if it's a little bit rough in some areas and it's still sticking out. That's okay, because we can take some sandpaper and lightly sand it and everything like that. Basically I'm going to show you next how to get rid of all your edges here that you have. This part is a little bit tricky, but I'd say it's more tricky, time consuming, patience. because this is more slow as possible. You want to take your time on this because it is veneer, and veneer is very delicate. So what you basically want to do on this way is you want to figure out which way your which way your grain direction is going. So basically some areas this is going this way, this is going up, but mostly on the edges you want to take a look. For this one, I know that the grain direction is going this way, and you'll know when you start to cut it, if it starts to splinter off right away and chipping, it's very hard, then you kind of know you're going in the wrong direction. So basically what you're going to need is, this is just like a little mini kind of scraper knife. Basically you can use an X-Acto knife if you have or anything like this. It just comes at the local hardware store, the little ends that they come in, and you can just scrape away if you get small stuff on. But I find this comes in handy for this application. And you don't want to take big chunks, you want to just take small chunks, and you just want to basically dig in to the grain and just kind of let it just follow, and it will follow to the edge. So it's kind of just a slow progress on just kind of slowly chipping away, going around. And don't worry about if it's not 100% pretty or anything like that, because it's okay, because we're going to be edge banding the edges afterwards. So it's not too bad, and we're going to be resanding this anyways. So that's just basically the process of doing this, is just slowly going around and slowly removing all your edges. Okay, so you do it here. And with these, it's just a little bit tricky, but it's the same idea. Or taking your chisel and kind of just slowly going in here on edges, just kind of cutting off some areas that you can with the chisel. Some of it might tear like this, but it's okay because it didn't tear. It's still in the overhang, so it's okay. But you can take a chisel, slowly do with the ends, or you can take the knife and just kind of scoring it. And when you're scoring it, what you're doing there is you're making a line into the veneer. So when you're breaking the veneer, it's going to break into those parts as well. So if you make just little score marks here, I'd rather stay under than go over too much. Sometimes you might be able to get veneer to pop. And there you go, kind of just pop. And because I had a cut there, it just rips off. And then you do exactly the same thing that you did. You just slowly take off just a little bit of chunks at a time. Just keep going slowly and just slowly until you get a nice full radius looking like this. Alright? And then once you complete all that all the way around, your next step is just sanding it, making it nice and smooth, your edges, and same with the inside as well. If you notice from your pin nailer, this is a time to fix it from the nails. Sometimes the heads, they will stick up just a tiny bit. Just take a little bit of a block of sandpaper I have here, 120, and just slightly go back and forth like this, and the nail will be nice and smooth, so you won't have to worry about that. The next step is basically making a holder at the back for your speakers, so that it stays in and everything, so they don't fall out when you're using it. And so all you need basically is duct tape. I'm using black duct tape because I'm going to be painting the back black afterwards. And I've got here wafer head framing screws, because they've got like a, I can show you here, they've got basically a wafer head. It's like a thicker washer almost attached to it, and it's just perfect for it, matches with black. So what you're going to need is a piece of duct tape that is about 6 inches long, and once you cut it, you're just going to fold it right in half onto that. And once you've done that, then you are going to need 2 pieces of 1/8 of an inch thick of wood, and about 1 inches long, and I think about 1 inch wide or so. It's a 1 inch by 1 inch block or so. And once you've got that, I already got one on here just so it's no longer a long to show you guys. So once you've got one on, I'll show you exactly how to get the other one on. But what you basically want to do is kind of measure up first with your piece to figure out where you guys want to put it. Now, like I said, your speakers may be different from what you're doing, but I'm doing it this way with these speakers. So I'm just going to line it up kind of flat where I want them to be of the edge, and then kind of just make a little mark with your fingernail, or just indent so you kind of know roughly where the speaker is going to lay. Then you want to take your piece of wood here and just off to the edge, or so where your mark is, and we're just going to take a little piece of duct tape here and just kind of wrap it around here one way, and then we're going to take another piece of duct tape and you're just going to flip it over on the back side and just put a nice piece on the other side, so it's all nice. Don't worry if it's not all stick together and everything, because we will be putting another layer on, I'll show you. And once you got it that way, you want to flip it back over this way, and then just take a piece and just kind of fold it back over. You kind of can play with this a little bit to your design. I just happen to just figure this out just for strength wise. So there I've got a nice good hold on that piece there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to take another piece that is 6 inches long of duct tape, and I'm just going to be putting it right over top, and you can tell the difference between, this is your bottom side when you've got your little pieces that the notches are on the bottom. You want everything to be flat on top, because that's what people are going to see, so you don't want to have any marks. So you're just going to kind of line it up best that you can, and then once you got it on, just kind of flatten it all nice and down, and then flip it over, and then just kind of flatten it down. And this is kind of important, you want to kind of get your notches in there first, otherwise if it happens to be a little bit too tight, it's going to tear on you. And the good thing about duct tape is it's kind of stretchy, so it will stretch on you. So there you go. So there is your one piece, all nicely done. And then all you're basically going to do is just kind of find the center of your square piece that you have on here. You want to center it, and just kind of put, drill a little hole in, and then just screw down with a screwdriver your screws, and they'll be nice and tight. And that's how it looks from the back side, so it's nice and firm. Okay, so we're going to show you guys on how I did for the shelf, because that was the next step there for the shelf. And basically what I did was I cut my piece of wood at 3/4 inches wide, and in height was 1 inch, and I believe it's called a cove bit. And that's basically this guy right here. I believe it's called a cove bit. I could be wrong on it. You might want to check that out, but that's basically this right here. And the bit diameter is 1 1/4 inches, and the radius is 3/8. That's what I used. And basically what I did was just had it down. I had it on a bigger piece, and then I cut it down because it's a lot easier to router. And I just slowly set my depth and just kind of made very, very small passes. And this kind of went all the way through. So I got a nice clean piece of wood there of doing it. Just so that way then when the MP3 player sits, it's sitting on a nice little shelf there. And what I did on the edges, just to make it a little bit nicer, was a 1/8 round over I did on the top here and on the bottom edge, so that when it sits down, this top front part is all nice and round overed, you know, sharp corners, and the rest is just sanding and stuff like that. And then I cut the piece to 4.5 inches long, and I'm just kind of gonna center it or so. And I had to drill a hole, figure out my hole size for my cord, and so that the MP3 player will plug into. And my cord is an L shape, so I need to drill a bigger hole. So I just drilled a 3/4 inch hole, and then just did 1/8 round over on the front and on the back piece here, just to make it look a little smoother, so that when I sand inside here, the cord won't be on any sharp edges or anything like that. So the next step basically will be sanding everything. Alright, so after all my sanding that I did here, I don't know if you guys can see it there basically on the edges here. You can see all the sanding and all the putting is all basically completely done. That's what you want to do, nicely smooth. I finished sanding everything with 150 grit, and once I did that, I basically kind of centered the MP3 holder. Basically, I kind of just centered where I want it, so I kind of just eyeballed it. You can measure it up in the middle depending where you want it, and all I did was on the back is I just pre-drilled and used number 8 screws by 1.25 inches long, and just your regular woodworking wood screws basically, and I just pre-drilled everything, countersinked it in so that it's all nicely tight. A little bit of glue and just screw it in just so the glue kind of holds in position. Alright, so I'm ready to stain my skateboard here. The color that I have is it's just a small sample of stain that I have here, and it's a solid color. It's a weatherproofing wood stain like you would use for outdoors, because you can tint them different colors, and I wanted to have mine blue, so I ended up using that. I bought mine at Home Depot. You can pick any bare color and then they'll put in the color for you. The only thing is for mine, because I'd add so much tint to it, it ended up, when I did a test sample, it ended up going on my paint. I don't want that. I wanted to see the wood grain. So what I ended up doing was just diluting it, and I just kind of played with it till I liked it, how it was going on basically to the wood. So it's kind of hard for me to say for you guys how much. I just kind of turned on the top a little bit and just mixed it up. Basically that I put through, and I just put in another container. It's water-based, so you can dilute it, and so I'm just going to apply it. I'm just using a lint-free cloth here, and I'm just going to dip it in and basically just start at one end and just putting it on. And if you think it needs to be a little bit darker, that's not a problem. You can just add just a little bit more of your paint, or not paint, but the stain. And with the color, if you think it needs just a little bit more, you can just add just a little bit on top of it, and it just kind of gives you that skateboard wood kind of look, and that's kind of what I'm going for. So sometimes you can end up watering it down a little too much, but it's okay. You just take from the can a little bit extra, like I have it on camera there, but you just dip it in just a little touch, and then just dip it into your water here a bit, and just kind of mix it in the hand, in the cup, and you kind of get more and whatnot. You just play with it basically till you're happy with it, because sometimes you do have to play with sometimes the color that you like. Because I know sometimes I've done that before, where I've had to play with the color just to get a little bit darker or lighter in the effects. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish it, and then I'm just going to let it dry overnight. Alright, so I let my color dry on overnight. Now that it's fully dried, I'm going to add a clear coat. And to my clear coat, I want to give it a nice sparkle look to that. So what you're going to need is some sparkles, and I just got it at the craft store, a whole bunch of different sparkles. I'm going to be using blue for this project here. And I only use about 1/4 of a teaspoon you want to put into your liquid. Now I only have a very little, I don't know if you can see in here, liquid in here, not too much, and a fine brush. And the kind of stain that I'm going to be using here is ones that I've used on my other ones. I don't know if you guys can see it here, but it's blurry or not. It's just a Varthane Professional Clear Finish semi-gloss. That's pretty much what I'm using for this project. And so basically you want to make sure it's all clean, all your dirt, anything that's on it is all off, because once you put your clear coat on, that's how it's going to be. Just getting rid of just any little dust or anything like that. And so like I said, put my sparkles in, just kind of stir it around. You're going to have to do it every once in a while just to make sure. and then just start putting it on like you would do a regular clear coat for any type of furniture or anything like that, and just start in one way and just go ahead with that. And I'm gonna put about 3 coats of this on, and I'm just gonna let it dry for 2 hours in between. So I'm just gonna go ahead and clear coat the whole project. Alright, so basically now that I have let it sit with the 3 coats overnight, it's all nicely dry, I just took some painter's tape and just went along all the way around the edges. On the top part, just want to make sure it's nicely covered, because the next step is taking a smaller brush than the width, and I'm just using black Rust-Oleum water-based paint that's gloss, and I'm just going to go and paint all the way around the edges carefully. That's why I've taped it off, and it's got a clear coat, so if I do happen to get some on when I peel off the paint, peel off the tape, it's okay, because you can easily scratch it off because it's got a nice clear coat on here. So I'm just going to go ahead and just paint 2 coats of black paint all the way around the edges on here. Alright, so your next step is going to be peel off your tape, painter's tape that you have done, and do any little touch-ups with black paint if you need to do so. So now it's done, and I'm going to be adding the grip to it. So basically for the grip, what you're going to do is take your roller that you used before for doing the veneer, and what I'm going to do is just squeeze basically some glue on, and then just take my roller and just roll it all evenly. I don't have the sand. I have to get the sand. It's just in the garage right now, but it's too dusty to bring in the house. I've just got it in a bag, and then you just want to basically just sprinkle it all over it, and then once you sprinkle it on, just like glitter if you were doing it, just shake it all nicely down, and just check to make sure you got no spots missing or anything like that. And once you've got that all nicely covered, you're good to go. For the holes, I'm just going to put maybe some toothpicks in just to make sure that the glue doesn't cover all that up. Alright, now after I put the sand on, let it dry overnight, and it's the same black paint, Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch Gloss, that's just what I'm using. Same paint that I did on the sides, I'm going to do the same thing now on the top. And I'm just going to do about 1 coat, and we'll see. You might need more depending on how you like it. I know I did it on a test scrap piece, and 1 coat was good enough for me, the liking that I wanted to do. So I'm just going to stir up my paint and then just start painting it away. Alright, so after you basically put your black paint on, I did 1 coat like I said, and I just let it dry. I put it in the speakers, make sure everything fit okay, and added my straps, put my screws in them, and the next step was kind of attaching all the wire and cable at the back. That's kind of a lot that came with this kit. So what I basically did first was kind of rolled up a little bit, just basically just going back and forth just to get something that looks kind of like this basically. And then I just put it down kind of where I want to position it, and then I just use these cable clamps at 3/8, and I just got a local hardware store. You can get that just in the electrical department. And I used 8 by number 9/16 screws. That's the same screws I used for the back pieces here. I used the same thing for the front. And then to stick this guy on, because this is basically that you can hook into your computer just USB, or you can hook it into this handy little battery backup system that you can put, I think it's 4 AAAs in here. And that's what I want to do to run off your battery. I used double-sided Velcro, and Velcro that I had left over from another project I just used. The only problem I came across was sticking it onto here was great on the back part here, but the stickiness of going onto the rough surface of the sand didn't really stick too well. I guess the motion of just pulling it off pulled it off. So I used just some PL Premium, which is heavy duty glue, sticks to anything. And I just put in 2 screws, number 6 by 5/8. The reason for that is because they countersink just a little bit, so it makes it flush. I didn't want to use the black ones because I know they've got a washer head, so I want it to stick. I don't want it to be half on, half off. So that just basically sticks on, and then it'll just stay into position, and then when you want to take it off and take everything out and hook it up to your computer, you still can if you want to. I just did it so it's accessible, so if I ever change my mind where I want to put it, I can. And then this I'm just kind of figuring out, it just goes through the hole basically, like I showed you before at the front. And what I might do is might tie it off just a little bit, so I've got a little bit of room there, but I wasn't sure yet how long I want to leave the cable. And once I got all that done and completed, then the next part I basically did was do the front. And this is how I ended up doing the front. I think it's turned out really nice there. And let's kind of move the camera here so you guys can kind of see here, sorry, what it kind of looks like here. And so basically all I did was added some stickers, and the stickers I just got from the dollar store, Dollarama basically, and it's just the laptop stickers that they have, and they're nice and big and everything, and they had different styles and everything like that, so I ended up just, it was $1.50, so I just ended up grabbing one of those and just kind of playing it and positioning where I want it, and just some extra hearts and stuff I had left over. So I just kind of just put it on, and that's the finished product basically right now. I just want to show you guys on the stickers base, and you can do whatever design. If you're an artist and a great painter, go for it. Like, this is your opportunity to do whatever you want. This is kind of just what I came up with the idea of doing. Alright, so there's your last and final step, is the finished product and what it looks like, and you can enjoy it. And you can also make, which I did also make as well, is I also made this skateboard picture frame here that you guys can also take a look at. The photograph in there I took myself as well. But I followed the exact same steps. The only difference is I just went to the dollar store and just bought a cheap picture frame and just used the glass and just measured out the picture and did the same process, pin nailing your wood strips in, and pretty much that's it. And the backing, all I did was routed it out and just added screw and little clips to make your very own frame. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and like to hear your comments and reviews. If you guys do make one, please let me know.